Our guest today is Morgan Taylor, a researcher at the Monterey Institute of International Studies who has been looking into the finances of the Haqqani network, recently designated by the United States as a foreign terrorist organization. So, Ms. Taylor, who or what exactly is the Haqqani network?
You know, it is a little confusing. The Haqqani network is autonomous, but it is also a component of the Afghanistan Taliban. Some statements released by Haqqani network and Taliban leadership refer to themselves as one and the same, that the Haqqani network is not separate from the Taliban in any way. However, the network's history, their autonomous leadership, their actions, and their regional control indicate that the Haqqani network is, at the very least, a somewhat autonomous component of the Taliban. Now, the Haqqani network, which I'll refer to as the Haqqanis or the network throughout this interview, were formed in the 1980s by Jalaluddin Haqqani. He was schooled in many of the same Deobandi madrasas as the Taliban, and later in the 1980s, he joined their fight against the Soviet Union. Now, when the Taliban really consolidated power in 1996, the Haqqani network ceded power to them, and that alliance was formalized by Jalaluddin's appointment as the Minister of Tribal and Border Affairs. Over the next 20 years, the network was, and continues to be, critical for the Taliban's power in eastern Afghanistan, northern Waziristan, and Pakistan's tribal border areas. The Haqqanis essentially act as the governing body in those areas through a mixture of extortion, protection, and mediation between tribes, various other Islamist armed groups, and militias in the region.
And what makes the Haqqani network in particular so dangerous?
Well, three things. First of all, the radical religious component of the group has really driven them to commit incredibly violent acts against coalition forces, U.S. forces, and Afghanis themselves. Official numbers vary, but according to American estimates, the Haqqani network is responsible for 1/10 of the attacks against coalition forces and about 15% of casualties. For example, they're responsible for notorious acts such as the 2008 storming of the Serena Hotel, the 2009 suicide bomb at the Coast CIA base, which is actually described as the most deadly attack against the CIA in 25 years, and as well as other coordinated attacks in 2010, 11, and 12 against American embassies and bases throughout the Kabul and Coast provinces. Now, the network also maintains connections and provides support to other extremist groups throughout the region. For example, when Al-Qaeda was first trying to establish itself in Afghanistan, it was actually in Haqqani territory. And it was only with the help of Haqqani financing, collaboration, and safe haven that Al-Qaeda was even able to operate there. So the Haqqanis continue to host these extremist groups such as Al-Qaeda and the Pakistan Taliban in regions under their control, which is helping to facilitate broader extremist activity that can include potential attacks against the United States. Now, the third reason is that the Haqqani network is very dangerous because of their operational and financial abilities. The network's diverse and steady stream of income makes it really difficult to counter their activities. Equally as important, their steady financing really embeds them in the region. So this makes these continued violent and large-scale attacks possible. And this is the most important part to look at today because it's an opportunity for the United States to more effectively combat and disrupt the network.
Can you explain exactly how the Haqqani network finances itself?
Absolutely. First of all, part of the reason that the Haqqani network is so resilient and well-financed is because it has been very effective at diversifying its streams of income. The most current report on Haqqani network financing was very recently published by Gretchen Peters. Now, her piece sheds a lot of light on the intricacies of Haqqani network financing. And as it turns out, the network has relied on a very reliable source of funding, which includes kind of insurance-type payments for businesses in the region against any sort of violent attack, or they also receive donations that are kind of ideological support from countries such as Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait. Now, importantly, there is considerable evidence that suggests that Pakistan aids and abets the Haqqani network, both in terms of financing and operating space. In other words, they do not interfere with operations in Haqqani territory, and they allow them to continue to traffic their supplies, drugs, contraband, and money between Afghanistan and Pakistan. While Pakistani support and other donations have really built the historical backbone of Haqqani financing, the network has developed other financing schemes. Currently, extortion makes up the bulk of Haqqani financing. They successfully tax and charge licensing fees for the movement of goods through their territory. They also demand protection money from both citizens and any sort of outside organization that wants to establish a business, build a road, or really start any project within their region. Also, as with the Taliban, the Haqqani network participates in the narcotics trade. The network taxes the movement of drugs through its territory and actively participates in the trafficking of precursor chemicals that are used for the processing of opium into heroin. Now, there are also illicit fronts that the Haqqani network uses to raise money, kind of almost like the mafia. They require part ownership and control over many businesses and projects in such industries as real estate, transportation, construction, the chromite trade, import-export. All of these ventures, they serve as both money makers for the group, and they serve as another method to launder the illicit money that the network has earned. Now, you might hear reports about the Haqqani network using both robbery and kidnapping to raise money, but it's pretty unusual, and it really doesn't serve as a regular source of income. Overall, the Haqqani network is mafia-like in its financing, and it sells protection by taxing the movement or businesses in the region in exchange for security.
So why does understanding how the Haqqani network finances itself matter?
You know, it matters because it allows for better and more specific operations against both their assets and their operations. Be those a public diplomacy type campaign that highlights those discrepancies between their participation in the drug trade and their radical Islamist ideology, or going after businesses affiliated with the network. Recently, it appears that the network's ambitions have been shifting. You know, they now emphasize financial gain more than ever, which makes them more susceptible to financial disruption. Even more importantly, while the Haqqani network itself is not very likely to attack the United States, on the homeland, the groups that it does help to support, such as Al-Qaeda, do have international ambitions, particularly against the United States. Now, by attacking the financial backing of the network, we can not only disrupt their abilities in Afghanistan and Pakistan, but also disrupt the groups that rely on its assistance.
So will this recent FTO designation help in this fight?
Yes, absolutely. The Foreign Terrorist Organization designation, or the FTO designation, is significant because it expands the tools available to both law enforcement and the military for targeting, disrupting, and dismantling the financial structure that really defines the network and their ability to survive. The designation strengthens the United States' ability to target the group's assets and eventually limit their operational space.
Well, thank you, Ms. Taylor, for sharing your expertise with us today.
Thank you.